political consultancy in India, it did not arrive quietly. It entered like a force that changed the very foundation of election. What began as simple slogan writing, event management, it evolved into a multi-layered industry. Multi-layered industry. Industry of data scientists, behavioral analysts, social media strategists, communication architects, and political psychologists. This evolution, it reshaped Indian democracy. It turned elections from spontaneous political contests into professionally engineered operations. This era, this digital era, it marked the beginning of a new political craft. Campaigns became more scientific. Data became decisive. Every constituency, every booth, every voter segment, they turned into a data point. Phone numbers, phone numbers collected at events, they became vehicles for IVRS calls and SMS campaigns. Political consultants, they emerged as new power players who could repackage entire leaders. Behind every banner, there was a structure. Behind every slogan, there was a calculation. Behind every promise, there was targeting. Elections turned into operations driven by technology, driven by propaganda, driven by micro-level social engineering. Field workers, war rooms, communication teams, data analysts, and strategists, they merged into one mission. They merged into one mission. Campaigns today, they are emotional factories. They create identity. They create anger. They create hope. They create belonging. They use technology. They use caste patterns. They use local grievance. They use personalized messages. Then fake news, it becomes a tool. Social media, it becomes an amplifier. And every forwarded message, it becomes a drop in a rising tide of influence. Elections are not won on polling day. They are won in silent months before it. In the rooms where messages are crafted. And in the minds where perceptions are shaped. To win an Indian election, one must understand the invisible threads that pull opinions and emotions. Politics runs on narrative, not on noise. Politics runs on strategy, not on spontaneity. Politics runs on preparation, not on promises. Politics runs on the understanding that people respond not only to the facts, but also to the stories, symbols, and echoes of shared memory. Between 2011 and 2014, India entered into a storm. The country watched as corruption numbers, they shook public faith. The 2G spectrum scam, coal allocation scam, the Commonwealth scandal, they revealed shocking figures. These were not simple administrative mistakes. They became symbols. They became symbols of decay. They created a sense of humiliation. That humiliation for nation. A nation which they wanted to progress. The anger did not remain on paper. It spilled into streets. Moreover, in December 2012, the brutal Nirbhaya case, it lit a fire in the hearts of citizens. Young people, they filled the roads leading to India Gate. Water cannons and tear gas met their demands for justice. Entire cities, they echoed with the voice of a generation that had lost patience. This movement made people look towards politics with urgency. It made people to see that change would not come from silence. During this period of unrest, a parallel force, it rose in Indian politics. He emerged from Gujarat carrying the promise of strong governance, Gujarat model, and development and religious narratives that shaped over years. His Gujarat model showed economic growth, industrial expansion, religious polarization, and confident leadership. So his image became powerful anchor in the political consciousness of the nation. As the 2014 general election approached, politics in India, they entered a new era. They entered a new era. Traditional campaigns, they were replaced. These traditional campaigns were replaced by precision-driven communication strategies. Technology turned into a political weapon. Messages were delivered through hologram rallies that reached hundreds of locations at once. Conversations. Conversations turned into mass connect programs using video conferencing. Social media. Social media became a battlefield. Then short messages, sharp slogans, and relentless branding. They shaped perceptions with the speed never seen before. Then there are slogans. There are slogans like "Achhe din aane wale hai." "Achhe din aane wala hai." These slogans traveled from village to metropolitan towers within seconds. The election did not feel like a contest. It felt like a movement carried by energy, imagery, and storytelling. India saw the impact. India saw the impact on polling day. The final results gave majority to the NDA. These numbers reflected more than votes. They reflected a transformation. They reflected a transformation in how elections were won. Power shifted towards strategy. Power shifted towards communication. Power shifted towards emotional resonance. Narrative defeated noise. Branding overshadowed biography. Before 2014, the NDA alliance, it mastered the art of taking every allegation against the Congress party directly into the people. They were able to succeed taking it to the people. It converted every accusation into public anger, every report into a weapon, every failure into a movement. This strategy, it reshaped India's political landscape. It created the wave that carried 2014. But after 2014, when similar scams or even larger allegations emerged, scandals involving billions, controversies involving national security, failures touching every home. But unfortunately, the Congress party alliance, they could not create the same impact, the impact created by NDA. This Congress party, they have the data, they have the facts, they have the material. What it did not have was the communication power. It did not have unified messaging. Congress party did not have media support. They did not build a social media army. It did not drive the narrative with consistency. The ruling party controlled the state, while Congress party, they struggled to find its voice. So the Congress party watched some of the largest scandals, of the detail unfold. Yet they could not convert them into public understanding. They could not convert them into public understanding or public outrage or public movement. The failures were not small. They were massive. They carried numbers that could shake any nation. But Congress was unable. They carried stories that could have shaped an alternative narrative. But without strategy, without communication discipline, without a consistent voice, the Congress party remains scattered headlines instead of a people's movement. If we take some examples, Adani Group. The acquisitions are Adani Group. So it can alone have the force to change the nation's mood. A global report in 2023, it wiped out over $150 billion of market value. A US indictment released more than $250 million in bribes for solar contracts. Airports worth 7.6 lakh crore, they were given to a company with no prior experience. These facts should have traveled to every home. They should have become the center of public debate. Instead, they floated in fragments. They appeared in some speeches. They vanished in the next. The NDA controlled the narrative. Congress could not sustain electoral bonds. They revealed their own truth. Data showed that one party received 6,000 crore out of all anonymous bonds. Half of the entire system's funding. But Congress party failed to simplify the truth for the ordinary citizen. Demonetization. It caused a nationwide shock. 86% of India's cash was wiped out in a single night. The aftermath, it destroyed small business. It cost 1.5 million jobs. Black money recovery was barely 13,000 crores against an estimated 5 lakh crore. The policy became one of the biggest economic setbacks of the modern India. But the narrative went uncontested. The ruling party called it a sacrifice for the nation. Congress could not transform the pain. They could not transform the pain into political consciousness. Then farm laws triggered the longest protest in independent India. Farmers, they sat on roads for 378 days. More than 750 lives they were lost. The laws were withdrawn. This was a turning point. A movement where leadership could have built a movement across states. But Congress did not capture that energy. It did not build a coalition of voices. The story faded and the ruling party regained control. Then the Citizenship Amendment Act and in the NRC, they shook communities across the country. 53 lives were lost in the Delhi roads. Civil liberties came under stress. The Congress narrative, it remained soft, inconsistent, and slow. It could not turn fear into organized resistance. It could not unify people under a clear message of constitutional protection. The PM Cares Fund. Then the PM Cares Fund. It collected more than 10,000 crore. During COVID-19 global crisis. But they refused transparency. RTA requests, they were denied. The fund was declared outside public scrutiny. They should have ignited a national debate on accountability. Congress mentioned it, but it did not take it as a campaign. It did not take the issue to the people in a language they understood. Congress party allowed the ruling party to frame the fund as a charity rather than a responsibility. Unemployment became one of the biggest failures of the decade. A government that promised 2 crore jobs a year, but it delivered far less. Youth unemployment, it crossed 23%. Inequality widened until 1% of Indians held 40% of the nation's wealth. Inflation touched double digits. Everyday life became expensive. These failures, they touched every home. At Congress party, they could not convert this pain into political movement. It did not communicate in a way that felt personal, emotional, or urgent. National security. National security saw deep challenges. The government refused public discussion on that. It, it Congress party did not build a strong narrative around the need for accountability. Then Manipur. Manipur burned for months. Manipur burned for months. 200 lives were lost. 60,000 people were displaced. Still, the ruling party controlled the national conversation. Congress party could not take the truth to every home. Then mainstream media. Mainstream media, it played its part. Corporate ownership, it shaped coverage. Corporate ownership shaped the coverage. Newsrooms, they depended on government advertising, they zeroed the criticism and injected the polarizing narrative. Press freedom, it dropped to 159th place in the world. Independent voices, they faced rise. Independent voices faced rage. This environment it demanded a stronger, smarter opposition strategy. Unfortunately, Congress did not adopt that strategy. The ruling party ran a 24-hour communication mission. 24 hours communication mission. Congress responded with scattered statements. The result was silence. The result was silence where noise was needed and clarity where confusion was created. Persistence is needed where occasional remarks appeared in history. The failures of the government were not hidden. The government's failures were visible. They were documented. They were investigated. But Congress party failed to turn them into stories that people remember. It failed to speak in a language that touched emotion. It failed to use the tools of modern communication. It failed to build rhythm, repetition, and resonance. So, in today's political arena, truth alone is not enough. Truth, it must travel. Truth, it must speak. Truth, it must echo. When the ruling party mastered perception, Congress did not master communication. So, in Indian elections, strategy is rarely straight road. Strategy is rarely straight road. It bends because it bends, it twists, and it turns with every new development. Plans collapse, new plans rise, and once the victory is declared, people look back and stitch together a perfect story, even though the journey was filled with uncertainty. That is the illusion of hindsight. The truth is far more unpredictable. The truth is far more unpredictable. Every campaign lives on instinct, improvisation, and rapid decisions. This new age of elections, they created a new profession, political consulting. A field where young minds became a key players in shaping leaders and shaping narratives. The public, they imagined these teams sitting inside glass offices with screens, charts, and perfect systems. This team knew one truth. Elections are not won only by data. Elections are won by creating an atmosphere. By creating an atmosphere. It brought young people into rooms where leaders listened, where leaders smiled, where leaders connected. The goal was connection. The team understood that a leader's image can be redesigned with the right ambience, lighting, colors, and tone. It was branding pure and powerful. People wrote their grievances on forms, each handwritten note. It created personal investment. When a voter puts something on paper, hope awakens. Hope it pulls them towards the person who received it. That emotional link, it became the campaign strength. Branding in politics does not stop with your own leader. It extends to your opponent. If you do not shape your own identity, your rival will shape it for you. If we take national politics, a clear example is how Rahul Gandhi was turned into Papu. It took a steady flow of jokes. It took a steady flow of memes, mocking videos. It took lakhs of social media pages and WhatsApp followers. Over time, a damaging identity settled in the public mind. That is the cost of leaving your narrative in the hands of your rivals. In political philosophy, Niccolo Machiavelli, he wrote that power is not given to the hesitant. Power is not given to the hesitant. He said a leader must seize the moment because destiny punishes those who wait too long. In the battle for the crown, fortune favors the bold. Fortune favors the hungry. Fortune favors the decision. It rewards those who accept their path, not those who step back. Machiavelli, he believed that a leader must be willing to claim the throne before others rewrite the story of his character. This principle, it played out in modern India. So, Rahul Gandhi had the chance to become Prime Minister not once, but twice in UPA 1, UPA 2, 2004 and 2009. The UPA won majority seats. The path to power was open. Senior leaders, allies, Congress party, they were all ready. But Rahul Gandhi refused. Not once, but twice. He said he was not prepared to take that seat. He chose honesty over ambition. He chose preparation over coronation. In a Machiavellian words, or in a Machiavellian world, that restraint it became a weapon in the hands of rivals. A vacuum appeared. A vacuum appeared. Into that vacuum, they stepped an entire machinery determined to define him before he defined himself. His rivals understood the rules of perception. They understood the laws of narrative warfare. They flooded the nation with a caricature. They gave the country a nickname. They invested years and crores of branding him as a Papu. A word repeated so many times that fiction became memory. A leader who refused the throne, he was painted as a leader who did not deserve the throne. That is the cruelty of politics. That is the cruelty of politics. If you do not tell your own story in time, someone else will tell your story to others. Even when mocked, he kept walking. He kept listening. He kept loving. 2 decades later, Rahul Gandhi, the same man who was labeled weak, he became the leader of the opposition and was able to revive the Congress party at grassroots level. He walked 4,000 kilometers across the length of India. He walked the 4,000 kilometers across the length of India, not for cameras, but for connection. He shifted the national debate from temples to unemployment, from religion to inflation, from noise to truth. He pressured the government on Rafael, And he pressured government on Adani, he pressured government on electoral bonds and China's incursions and on the inequality. So when Machiavelli said a prince must be feared or loved, he never imagined a leader who would choose to be understood. So Rahul Gandhi refused the throne until he felt ready to serve, not to rule. He chose integrity over immediacy. The Pappu joke has aged. The real story has not. The narrative was left. The narrative was left in the hands of his rivals for too long. Today, he is writing it himself. But consultants, they were able to create the brand of Rahul Gandhi as Pappu, showing there was no strong leader in their party. So, in the world of politics, these consultants and media decides branding. So, media after consultants, media became another battlefield. Consultants, they prepared press releases so polished press releases that journalists copied them without any change. Newsrooms, hungry for content, they accepted these packaged messages. TV channels, they repeated them. Social media amplified them. Sometimes dramatic moments were created only for cameras. A leader walking out of a meeting. A leader walking out of a meeting. A heated exchange at a public gathering. A staged confrontation. All designed to show strength, anger, or compassion. These scenes, they entered living rooms as breaking news, shaping opinions within minutes. It reveals the heart of modern elections strategy. The art of modern elections strategy. It shows that politics runs not on chance, but on crafted perception. It runs on mood. It runs on symbols. It runs on speed. It runs on the ability to stay active, stay visible, and stay ahead of the rivals' narrative. Consultants build atmosphere. Consultants build atmosphere. Atmospheres build leaders. Leaders build victories. And behind every victory, there is a story written not just with words, but with messaging, with imagery, and relentless strategy. Then technology. Technology changed the pulse of Indian elections. Technology changed the pulse of Indian elections. What once depended on loudspeakers, rallies, and handshakes, it began shifting screens towards servers, data dashboards. Every voter became a data point. Every booth became a target. Every community became a profile. Technology did not enter politics quietly. It arrived like a force. A force that could shape minds, that could influence behaviors, that could move entire states. The rise of digital systems, it created new kind of battlefield. Voter lists were no longer just sheets of paper. They turned into searchable database. They revealed caste clusters, local grievances, and demographic shifts. Then also we discussed phone numbers. Phone numbers for personalized messaging and IVR's calls, because these messages, these calls were reaching millions in a second. Then an SMS blast, it could spread a campaign line across district instantly. The political map of India, it began to move at the speed of data. So parties built technical teams. Political parties built technical teams to track every detail. They studied which age groups responded to development message. They identified which communities cared about water supply, which communities demanded roads, then which villages or which urban pockets responded to nationalism or which one responded to jobs. Data became a mirror that revealed moods and vulnerabilities. Campaigns used this mirror to fine tune every line, every image, every slogan. Technology pushed political work from the ground into the cloud. Apps, applications, they tracked the attendance of party workers. Applications, they recorded feedback from villages. Apps, these applications, they monitored booth level engagement. Even rallies, they were measured by digital reach instead of crowd size. A leader's speech, it could gather millions. A leader's speech could gather millions of views within hours. Technology turned every message into influence and every influence into momentum. Data made targeting sharper. Data made targeting sharper. A group of farmers received messages about crop support. A group of youth received messages on jobs. Women received messages about welfare benefits they get. Government employees, they received promises. They received promises about payments. They received promises about their transfers. Micro targeting, it became a powerful tool. It shaped perceptions silently without large rallies or visible events. Data also had its limits. But data also had its limits. Indian records were often missing. The names were repeated, phone numbers had errors, many addresses were incomplete. Tech teams, technical teams, they have to combine digital data with field intelligence. They need eyes on the ground to fill the gaps. They needed local understanding. They needed local understanding to interpret numbers. Technology amplified strategy, but it did not replace human insight. It became a partnership between machines and people. So, social media rose. Social media has risen as the new nervous system of elections. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, they created direct access to voters. A single message could bypass traditional media filters and reach millions. Videos, infographics, and one-line slogans, they spread through groups faster than news channels could broadcast them. The emotional content, it traveled the fastest. Anger traveled, pride traveled, fear traveled, hope traveled. The most dangerous weapon, it is misinformation. The most dangerous weapon, it became misinformation because fake news did not wait for verification. It moved with speed and created tension before truth could catch up. Every forwarded message, every forwarded message, it carried hidden power. One rumor could discomfort a voter's perception. One false story could inflame a community. Political teams, they understood this danger. It exploited it. They exploited it. They built networks of anonymous pages, social media volunteers, and influencers who pushed their own narratives day and night. Data helped to identify which stories would work, which edits would attract attention, and which emotional triggers would create reaction. Technology, technology also shaped internal party decisions. Winnability, who will win? Winnability, it was now measured with digital tools. Past margins, caste patterns, voter turnout histories, and survey inputs. Survey inputs fed into, they are fed into algorithms. These algorithms, they predict which candidate held stronger appeal. They suggest who should be dropped and who should be promoted. Candidate selection, it became more scientific. The goal was victory, even if it meant tough decisions. It reveals how elections shifted from instinct driven to data driven. It shows how the voter moved from being a supporter to becoming a data asset. It shows how technology can empower a campaign, but also how it can manipulate society. The new political battlefield is silent. The new political battlefield is, it is silent, it is digital, it is invisible, but it is powerful. It works without noise, it works without rallies, it works without banners, it works through algorithms that read public emotion and shape political outcomes. So, in this digital era, technology does not just support elections, it defines, technology defines elections. It decides who gets heard, who gets targeted, and who gets influenced. It shaped the stories people believe. It shaped the leaders they follow. It shaped the future of democracy itself. So, let's see the impact of fake news. Fake news became the silent weapon of modern elections. It entered Indian politics like a shadow, spreading faster than truth, traveling deeper than facts, and shaping emotions with a remarkable force. It did not need permission. They did not need permission. It did not need approval. Fake news only needed a screen and a moment of attention. A rumor could circle an entire district before the truth even woke up. A lie could reach a village in seconds. It could reach millions in a minute. And once a lie settled in the minds, it became harder to remove the stain. Propaganda, it formed the backbone of this system. Propaganda formed the backbone of this system. It created enemies where none existed. It created heroes where narratives demanded them. It reshaped reality to suit political goals. It fed on fears. It fed on angers. It fed on pride. It fed on identity. These emotions, they became fuel for campaigns. Every platform, it turned into a delivery system. WhatsApp groups, they became factories of influence. Facebook pages, they were multiplied. Anonymous accounts, they produced content that looked real, sounded real, and felt real. The line between truth, and fiction, it was blurred. It was blurred. A simple photograph could be edited and made viral. A video clip could be shortened to twist its meaning. A headline could be fabricated in minutes. Once circulated, it sparked debate, outrage, and support. It entered family conversations. It traveled across caste lines. It traveled across religious boundaries. It traveled across age groups. The impact was enormous because people trusted content sent by friends, neighbors, and relatives. Trust became the gateway for deception. Political teams, they understood this pattern. They built networks that operated day and night. They created content that matched the fears of one group and the hopes of another group. They pushed narratives. They pushed the narratives that suited their strategy. Some messages, they portrayed leaders as saviors. Some messages, they portrayed opponents as threats. A false story, it repeated 100 times, began to sound like common knowledge. perception slowly hardened it belief. Perception slowly hardened into belief. Propaganda became a battlefield of imagination. It could show a rival as a corrupt without any evidence. It could magnify a small mistake and turn it into a national issue. It could create division between communities. It could push a message that targeted youth one day and farmers the next day. It could amplify an incident. It could amplify an incident from one corner of the country and make it feel like a national emergency. It worked. It worked because speed mattered more than accuracy. Reach mattered more than logic. Fake news also fed the politics of fear. A rumor could make a community feel unsafe. A manipulated video it can inflame sentiments. A false claim about a leader could damage credibility overnight. Even after the truth emerged, the emotional impact remained. The emotional impact remained. Minds rarely return to their original state after fear touches them. So, propaganda used this principle with precision. This ecosystem, it did not work alone. It did not work alone. It was supported by influences. It was supported by influencers who spoke with confidence. It was supported by social media trolls who attacked anyone who questioned the narrative. It was supported by pages that looked neutral, but they worked like extensions of political games. Together, they formed an invisible army. They formed an invisible army that shaped public minds. This army grew. This army grew stronger during election season. It created a rhythm of constant messaging. A message at dawn, a rumor by afternoon, a video by evening, a meme at night. The cycle repeated. The cycle repeated every day. It overwhelmed the voter. It created noise so loud that facts were drowned. It shaped the emotional climate of entire states. The power of propaganda, it lies in its consistency. It lies in its consistency. It never rests. It never slows. It builds impressions drop by drop. It enters the mind without permission. It influences choices without debate. It affects voting decisions without confrontation. It turns politics into a theater where perception becomes more powerful than reality. So, winning an election in India, it is never an accident. It is a long, disciplined operation carried out at many levels across.